All righty, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today is Friday, April 7th, and today we've got a good episode talking about Michael Hawkins, soon to announce his commitment here pretty quick. Aaron Flowers, he's announcing his commitment. Where's he going? Not USC. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about Grayson Harris, a couple crystal balls, in favor of Oklahoma that have been rolling in. And then Edwin Spillman put OU in his top six. And then Kobe Black put OU in his top 11, one of our favorite numbers. We love making top double-digit numbers. Hopefully some top 30s will come soon from a few players, and we can get excited about that. So uh, let's get into it. So the first one, and probably the most important one to this 24 class, at least that's scheduled right now, is Michael Hawkins, the four-star quarterback, scheduled to announce his commitment on the 8th, so tomorrow on Saturday. It's basically down to OU and TCU. Long battle ever since Kendall Briles has made the transition over to TCU. And TCU, as of this morning, or as of Thursday morning, picked up a commitment from an Alito, Texas quarterback, Haas Heine. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not 100% sure, but they did pick up a three-star quarterback this
Great name.
morning. Yeah,
We
great
have a
name.
booty, they have a hiney. Imagine that. College
Yeah.
football.
Imagine that. But it still seems that TCU is pushing, and they're still going to try to get Michael Hawkins. I think you have a little bit of a harder time with TCU would have a harder time, but I mean, there's not to say that OU isn't either because of Jackson Arnold being here. So that definitely doesn't help. But there's another quarterback already there. I feel like TCU probably would not have taken the commitment this Thursday morning if they felt like Hawkins was going to be their guy. Brandon, what do you think?
I agree. I think with them getting Heine, it all but seals Hawkins to Oklahoma, which is great for the Sooners because now we will have solidified quarterback depth for years to come with Arnold, with Hawkins, and with Sperry. I think the days we talk about a lot in this show, it seems to be a Davis Bevel hater show almost at this point. But yeah, we're not going to see the Davis Bevels of the world play at Oklahoma anymore, which is a great thing for the Sooners. Obviously, you're excited to get him. You're excited about him helping out in the recruiting process once it happens. I'm pretty much talking like it's a done deal because I feel like it's a done deal. So yeah, it's good. It's good for OU, but I still stand by the thing that I still don't think he ever plays for the Sooners. But he's a good, competent backup quarterback. He has a lot to his game. Maybe he will. I don't know. But the last time we had an Allen quarterback, it turned out pretty well. So maybe he'll follow in his footsteps.
I do think he'll play. I think it's a great addition to the team. Will he play like in the next 2 years? Probably not, because the guy you mentioned, Jackson Arnold, should be the starter, and assuming he stays healthy the entire time, Michael won't get to see the field. But Jackson's going to go to the NFL at some point, and then you got a really good backup who honestly does need a little bit of development to his game. I criticized his accuracy last time. Someone brought up that he won the accuracy competition at a 7-on-7 camp, which is good. It's improving, but 7-on-7 is very different than tackle football. When you have 5 offensive linemen and people trying to come at you and kill you, the accuracy probably going to go down a little bit. So I think it's still part of his game that he'll need to work on. He does make plays with his feet, so it's going to be a little bit of a different element. Even though Jackson can, I think it's the way that they make plays is different on their feet. Michael Hawkins might have a little bit more Kyler Murray to his game, while Jackson's a little bit more Baker Mayfield. Not going to burn you, but he's going to be able to make plays out of the pocket. So hopefully, what we're assuming here is correct, and that he's going to be the quarterback for Oklahoma in the 2024 class. That would put the 2024 class in the lead, 2 commits to 1 for the 2025 class, but I don't think 2025 is going to stay at 1 for much longer.
Yeah, and I would think that I believe that Michael Hawkins will play at OU at some point. Is it year one? No, but I do see him playing at Oklahoma, meaningful snaps, not in garbage time. I do see him potentially becoming a starter here at Oklahoma. It could be his third year here, depending on how everything shakes out. Maybe even fourth, depending on how it goes. But at the end of the day, I mean, you always want his commitment. With the caliber of player that he is, and he could really get the class rolling and he is a key cog in landing the 5-star tight end in Devon Mitchell. I believe Devon Mitchell's parents were on, or his dad was on site in the last week or so. Even though that Mitchell's out in California, his dad's still visiting OU, and Hawkins family's recruiting Devon Mitchell as if they're going to OU. It seems like. So you don't really hear buzz of Mitchell to TCU as if, that's where Hawkins was going. So I feel really confident. I feel really, I would think something drastic would have to change between now when this video is being released and then his commitment on Saturday. So I see him being a part of this class, and I really at that point see it being a catalyst for this class, the long awaited catalyst to get this ball rolling. As we go into the spring game, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow, 2 weeks from Saturday, which is kind of hard to believe that we're already at this point. This year's flying by. So, but it's good to go. It'd be great to have a quarterback in 23, 24, and 25 all locked down, and the leaders of those classes. So
I think
let's move on.
In the college football of old, like when we were in high school, even our beginning years of college, Michael Hawkins would have eventually started. But in the day and age where you can just transfer with no penalty, so easy, I think it's too much to ask for a kid, I think, to sit 3 or 4 years. Kids don't do that anymore. Kyler Murray did it, but that was a different time of college football. I don't think anybody sits around 3 or 4 years. I guess Brock Vandergriff is doing it, but I don't know if is he even going to be the guy at Georgia?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it could be, and also something could happen if Jeff Levy gets a big time job somewhere. He might follow, and so you're right. There is a chance. I think if he doesn't play at Oklahoma, it's not because he's not good enough to play at Oklahoma. It might be something else, but I do think that he stays around. I feel like he's committing to the university, but things happen.
I just feel like we said the same thing about Nick Evers, and that we obviously saw how that panned out.
I do think that I mentioned it last time, so I won't repeat what I said, but I do think it's a little bit different situation from Nick. Rum brought up what I was going to mention, though. If Levy does end up moving on to a different school to be a head coach, you would assume when that happens, Jackson Arnold would probably stick around, and then it would be an easier transition for Michael Hawkins to leave with Levy, assuming that happens 2 or 3 years down the road. Either Jackson Arnold's going to stick around for his last year of college football with Oklahoma, or he's already going to the draft, and then we have Sperry. That would be the next man up. So,
and I mean, at the end of the day, Hawkins is a legacy at Oklahoma. He grew up an OU fan, committed to the university, so
that might make him more willing to stick it out. Yeah, that might make him more willing to wait on it, kind of do the approach if need be.
Yeah, I mean, he's committing to Oklahoma, assuming he does, knowing that there is a 5-star ahead of him in one class. There's no surprise. I think the whole Nick Evers deal was the fact that he committed, and then they continue to recruit another 5-star quarterback over the top of him, and then basically never gave him a shot when the Davis Bevel experiment happened.
Yeah, so, I think Nick Evers was just jaded from the experience, possibly. I mean, and I guess we might be putting words in his mouth from his experience, but just seemingly from the outside looking in, the experience probably wasn't great whenever you saw Davis Bevel go out and barely complete a football pass and he just had to sit on the sideline until the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, that's water under the bridge, but excited. Hopefully Hawkins does indeed pick Oklahoma, and then becomes a peer recruiter, shows up for the spring game, and hopefully we start locking down some commitments over the next 4 to 6 weeks from now. I'd imagine they will. So let's move on to a safety. Aaron Flowers, 2024 4-star safety out of Forney, Texas. Once seemed to be a foregone conclusion that was going to be a part of this 24K class with Oklahoma. It seems like with his commitment being today, as this video is being released, things are trending away from Oklahoma here. Oklahoma had all the momentum, and then a few other visits out to Oregon and USC seemed to really turn the tide. What's interesting is Thursday evening, Steve Wiltfong put in a crystal ball in favor of USC. Earlier on Thursday, around lunchtime, Nick Harris from Rivals put a crystal ball in favor of Oregon. So it's USC or Oregon right now, and I don't really know where he's going. I feel like he's going to go to Oregon, but I still will say this. I don't think those two schools are where he ends up. I still think he ultimately ends up in this 24K class. I just don't know if he's going to. I just get the feeling that I think it's going to be hard for him to say no to
Banner's going to look real
Oklahoma.
dumb if he ends up at Oklahoma.
Do what?
This banner we got here is going to look real dumb if he ends up at OU.
No. I think he's going to commit to Oregon, or I think he's going to commit elsewhere. I think long term, when it comes to December, I think Oklahoma might get back into this. They might not. I don't know. I mean, they're in a good spot with a lot of defensive backs. I still feel like it's going to be hard for him to say no to Oklahoma. I don't understand how there was so much momentum for Oklahoma, and then a couple visits out west really changed everything. Jose, what do you think? I expect him to commit somewhere other than Oklahoma.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of just hoping that he is wearing all those cool uniforms if he isn't at Oklahoma, because then that means he has to go beat up on USC every once in a while. Well, I guess not once he's there, because they'll be in the Big Ten. But he'll get to be playing for a defensive-minded coach, which would have been happening at Oregon or Oklahoma. I think really it's tough to beat Oregon regularly, especially on the recruiting trail. They've got Nike and Phil Knight backing them. Clearly, their kids think that it's a really cool place to be at. Dan Lanning, younger coach, so they might be able to connect with him a little bit better. And they've always recruited well. Never easy to beat them in a recruiting match. So if they do pull out this one, I don't think it's the end of the world because of what you mentioned. Oklahoma's in a good spot with plenty of defensive backs. Jaden Hardy being, or at this point, seems like priority number one. And you already have one corner. You only have so many spots. So personally, I don't think if he were to come back and Oklahoma was to go back and try to rekindle that connection at some point and sway him away from a Oregon or USC commitment later on in the summer, it's because something fell through where Jaden Hardy didn't come to fruition, or the other defensive backs that they're going after right now ended up going elsewhere and they needed to go to a backup plan, or I guess the original plan, if you whatever way you want to look at it. So we'll see. He'll do his own thing, and Oregon potentially or USC, but hopefully he's a Duck.
Yeah, anybody but Southern California, honestly. We're a big no Southern Cal show here. Peyton Bowen obviously went to the dance with Oregon, and then Oklahoma was the prettier girl, so that's always a possibility here. I think what it comes down to, like with Flowers, as you mentioned, as a part earlier in the cycle, we all thought he was going to be a Sooner, right? All the signs pointing that way. I think for him, it's, if you take a look around, I think it's a way easier opportunity on the field at Oregon or USC, and maybe that's what swayed the decision, because I don't follow either of those schools recruiting very much, but Oklahoma is loaded in the secondary and specifically at safety with kids coming in and kids that can play safety that maybe not listed as a safety right now, and guys like Jaden Rowe and guys like Dave Mustang, I can't think of his name right now.
Jacoby Johnson, Makari Vickers.
Sorry, but yeah, like we are loaded in the secondary and specifically at safety. I think from a competition standpoint, I think has a way better opportunity to see the field sooner at Oregon or USC, and I think that is something that may have impacted his decision as this process went along. And if that's the case, if I'm right about that, then Aaron Flowers is not a kid that you really want at OU anyway. No offense to him, I'm sure he's a very talented kid, but if I'm right and he's running away from competition a little bit or looking for the easier road instead of the right fit, per se, that's not how you build a championship team.
Who would have ever thought we would say too much competition in the defensive back room? About 3 years ago, I would have told you you're crazy.
We're bringing Bookie back too.
We're bringing who back?
Bookie.
Oh,
Bradley
man. We thought he was the Lord and Savior for the defensive back room at OU. I will never forget that. That was
I think he was better than people think about him sometimes. Yeah. Although that West Virginia game was the worst I've ever seen anybody play safety in my entire life.
God, yeah.
Oh, when they were just running go routes right past
Literally
him.
just like, hey, bookie, bye, bookie, touchdown. It was ridiculous.
Looking at how bad they made Billy Bowman look his freshman year, I think there's a good chance that he was just wildly mispositioned with the defensive coordinators he had.
No, I would agree. I think they did him a disservice. So,
Where
but
do you
anyway,
you're at Oregon, right?
no
He
Washington.
ended up going to Washington.
Yeah, I knew it was a Pac-12 school.
Yeah.
You can drive.
I don't
UDF
think
so.
so.
Anywhere? Does anybody know? Maybe that's the end of the video.
I do not know. I would imagine probably not. He probably went
Really fast.
undrafted. Yeah. So let's move on. OU on some more positive news for Oklahoma. OU picked up a couple crystal balls recently for 2025 unranked wide receiver Grayson Harris out of Ennis, Texas. He is a 25 kid, as I said. He's played as a freshman and a sophomore. In his career, 144 catches, 2,255 yards, and 18 touchdowns between his freshman and sophomore year. He picked up an Oklahoma baseball offer, so he's a two-sport athlete. Could it be somewhat similar to what K1 was doing, playing football and baseball for Oklahoma? It seems like things are trending in the right direction based on the crystal balls. Pick up an offer from Skip Johnson with OU. Obviously a talented kid. Anytime that you can put up those stats in 2 years as a freshman and sophomore is impressive. So I don't want anyone to be freaking out because he's an unranked kid. I mean, it's the 25 class. It's early. We're not 0U. It's okay. You don't put those stats together and not be talented. What do you think, Brandon?
I agree. I mean, if you put up 1,200 yards as a freshman and a little over 1,000 as a sophomore, 11 touchdowns as a freshman, 7 as a sophomore. He actually regressed as a sophomore just ever so slightly. But the kid's only going to get better. He's not going to be a 0-star, as you mentioned. He's going to become a 4 or 5 by the time it's all said and done. I think it's good that Oklahoma's in on it early to show him that we've been here the whole time because he has 12 offers right now. And, Florida State, Baylor, West Virginia, he's got some pretty decent offers, and they're all going to come before it's all said and done for him. He is only about 16 years old. We were talking about earlier, maybe he's not even driving yet. He could be in driver's ed. We don't know. We might reach out to him on Twitter and try to find out for you guys. But yeah, like he's young. There's a lot of time for him. He's only going to get better. He's probably going to have 1,000 yards of all of his high school career as far as a receiver goes. He's on the smaller side. He's 5'10", 170. But again, he is 12, so he could pack on some pounds before now in college. Dynamic playmaker, a lot of yards. Those stats don't lie. I'm a big numbers guy. It's good Oklahoma's in on him early. Maybe him and Sperry can start that connection early on, and by the time they get to campus, they'll already have developed a pretty nice rapport. Who knows? Maybe that can be his number one receiver, and we can have the next Baker and Hollywood or Baker and Dede connection with those two.
Yeah, the fact that Oklahoma's in early and it's going so fast shows that they're okay with taking super early commitments. If Grayson were to commit anytime soon, let's just say by the end of the summer, that would put Oklahoma in a decent position for the 2025 class, and they would still have a year to go. Like, it really seems like just overall looking around the recruiting landscape for 2024, most kids are taking their time this year for whatever reason. I don't know if they're trying to be a little bit more educated when it comes to NIL. Maybe they really just want to take a ton of visits and kind of take the Brandon approach that he's suggested for years now, where just take all 5 official visits. If you're only serious about 2, go take 3 vacations and then make your decision afterwards. I don't know what it is, but it seems like 2024 kids are moving a little slower than 2023 and 2025 guys, because there's plenty of schools that have multiple 2025 commitments already. So it would be nice to be one of those schools in Oklahoma, be in a spot where you're not having to do this repeat situation of you're only going into the summer with potentially 1 or 2 commitments. Now, I don't think it's a huge issue, but it also gives a little bit more hope, and you also have more peer-to-peer recruiting at this point. Up until like a month ago, we had 0, and there was 0 peer-to-peer recruiting. 2023 kids are focusing on finishing high school or being in college. Like, I know we've seen some people suggest, oh, Jackson Arnold should go recruit these kids. I'm sure that he's chatting with them when they go to campus, but he's not actively texting like he was with his 2023 class, because he was trying to build a class with the school, and now he's on campus trying to be a student and learn on the football field. So hopefully this happens, but we'll see how quickly it can progress. It would be crazy if both 2025 and 2024 have 2 commits at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Something that we're definitely going to be watching. Hopefully it happens sooner rather than later, but at the end of the day, I have a hard time believing that he would commit here quickly, but you never know. I mean, things happen. Kevin Sperry locked it down pretty quick, and maybe he was just waiting on that baseball offer. So let's move on. OU made a top 6 today for 2024 4-star linebacker Edwin Spillman, someone that we have never talked about on this show, out of Nashville, Tennessee, one of Brandon's favorite cities in the country. He loves himself some Nashville.
Big Nashville guy. If anybody's ever been to Nashville, which all 3 of us have, it's impossible to say you're not a big Nashville guy after visiting. I don't know about living there or whatever, but there's not a lot of place in the country better to visit, have a weekend than Nashville.
It is a great time. And OU made a top 6. His top 6 include Ohio State, Florida State, Georgia, UAB, which is interesting, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. He's got officials lined up in June for Tennessee and Ohio State. Unfortunately, it appears that he's got his official locked in with Tennessee for June 16th through the 18th, which is OU's big recruiting weekend in June. I would imagine OU's going to have a big recruiting weekend in July, so maybe he will make it for that. Granted, top 6, so one school will not be getting an official off this. Naturally, you would think UAB would not be getting an official. Last year, he had 101 tackles, 14.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 6 pass breakups, a stat machine, tackling machine. I would imagine that between Brent Venables and Ted Roof, they are prioritizing him. Obviously, OU must be in a decent spot from my understanding, never hosting him for a visit, or maybe just once. Okay, one time. But hopefully we see an official schedule for Oklahoma here pretty soon. Jose, what do you think?
I agree. I'm not sure where OU stands so I had to look it up because I know before the show we were chatting about him, trying to figure out if he had ever been on campus. And then like 2 minutes ago, I remembered that Rivals does a pretty good job of keeping up with these visits, either official or unofficial. According to Rivals, it says he was on campus last summer, June of 2022. So it's been quite some time. And a lot of kids from Lipscomb Academy did come over this last big visit weekend. I'm not sure if he was part of that group. If he wasn't, then I'm sure. Then it seems like a lot of kids had a good time because they probably came back saying a lot of good things about Oklahoma, and he maybe decided putting him in a top 6 would put him in a good position to explore that relationship a little bit more. And according to Rivals, Jay Valai and Ted Roof are his main recruiters. Jay Valai might be, no disrespect to Ted Roof, he's doing well at recruiting linebackers, clearly, but it seems like Jay Valai is the guy that's been able to really get these kids to give an extra look to Oklahoma, maybe when they just kind of diverted away from looking at OU. Jay Valai comes in and kind of keeps that door open for OU just to see if there would be a mix. And maybe Oklahoma at some point says it's not a fit and they have other linebackers that they're more interested in. But at this point, wouldn't be the worst thing to be in more top 6s than not, especially for linebackers in a position that last season we saw a ton of injuries before the season started, and depth was a huge issue once the fall came around.
This kid's good. So this one sucks because this is a weird show. We usually talk about kids we feel pretty good about. We're talking about 2 kids now that are going to go somewhere else at the end of the day. We're talking about Edwin Spillman now, who's going to end up at Tennessee, and Aaron Flowers, TBD, but it's not going to be OU, at least right away. Edwin Spillman's good, so that's why it sucks. I think he would have been a good fit in Oklahoma's defense, but we always talk, we preach follow the visits on this show, and if you follow the visits with Edwin Spillman, the dude went to Rocky Topalooza. He was at a Tennessee volunteer camp. He went to 3 games last year for the Volunteers. and he's got an official coming up in June. It's pretty much all but done. I think it would be some sort of wizardry if Oklahoma was able to flip him out of there, get him out of the state of Tennessee. He clearly seems intent on staying home. I don't know how far Nashville is to Knoxville, but it's closer than is Norman to Nashville. So I think it's going to be really hard to swing this kid. And it's kind of a bummer because I think he would have been a really good fit for OU. Crazier things have happened in the world of sports, especially college football. So who knows? But boys, I'm not feeling good about this one.
I tend to agree. I mean, my expectations are minimal here. I hope OU at least gets an official visit from him because things happen. Like we felt really good about Aaron Flowers, and then he took a few visits out to USC and Oregon, and then immediately the switch turned off, and now he's going elsewhere. Not saying that's going to happen for Spillman, but you always would like a chance to host him for a visit or maybe an official if he will choose you. So, again, my expectations are minimal. I expect him to, I agree with you, be at Tennessee. Naturally, it makes a lot of sense. But moving on to a little bit more positive news with Kobe Black, 2024 5-star cornerback. Kobe Black put out a top 11. We love those double-digit top edits. But he put a top 11 out on Thursday of LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, USC, A&M, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Oregon, Texas, TCU, and Florida. So naturally, Brandon, you pointed it out, or maybe it was Jose. OSU's not on there while his brother plays at OSU. That's kind of funny. He's not going to go play it at OSU. But I feel like I'm not saying that OU is going to be the landing spot for Kobe Black, but I think OU is going to be one of the top 5 and get an official from him. Whether he's a Sooner at the end of the day, I'm not 100% sure. It's going to be hard to tell Ohio State or Alabama no. But I think Oklahoma is going to have a fair shake at this, and I think Oklahoma can make this really interesting. Jose, what do you think?
It's as simple as in Jay Valai I trust. I know we've said it about Todd Bates in the past, and not that we shouldn't trust him because he's put Oklahoma in plenty of spots to potentially land really good defensive linemen, but Jay Valai has both put us in positions to get these top cornerbacks and safeties, and he's delivered at Oklahoma. Jacoby Johnson, Makari Vickers beating out Alabama for him. Like, he's a guy that as a fan we should look at this 5-star and the fact that we're in the top 11, even at, like we've mentioned multiple times, 11 is a lot of schools. Oklahoma and Jay Valai are probably pretty far up there, and it would not be a surprise if Oklahoma gets an official visit in June or July whenever he's able to make it. If he's part of the class is a different story. The fact that there is 11, that means that just a lot of schools are still in the mix for him. Once we see the officials that he plans out, it'll kind of show us a better idea. But I mean, a 5-star defensive back putting Oklahoma in a top 11 was not something that was commonplace, like you mentioned, 2 or 3 years ago. So we should be pumped that it's becoming more frequent and that there's a real possibility he could be a Sooner.
I think the first thing you look at with Kobe Black is he's obviously a very intelligent kid. He's a kid out of Waco who decided not to put the Bears in his top 11 because he wants to get the hell out of Waco, and who can blame him for that? And he also decided immediately he's not going to follow his brother to Oklahoma State. So he clearly has some sort of emphasis on winning, which I think automatically also eliminates schools like Nebraska and Florida. So really, I forget the other 11, but he's not going to bet at those two. So I think, Oklahoma, it's a top 11, but it's like Brom said, I think at the end of the day, Oklahoma's really going to make this kid's top 5, and it's going to get interesting down the line. Jay Valai's got his work cut out for him. I'm with you, Jose. I put a lot of trust in Jay Valai because he has shown that he can win these recruitment battles against the top dogs in college football. But Kobe Black is going to command some hardcore work on Jay Valai's side. He's the epitome of a freaky athletic kid. You look at what he's done in high school. He's a very good defensive back, but he also played receiver and running back. He runs track and plays basketball. The dude does it all in high school. Very, very athletic. He's going to be a problem at the college football level. I think Oklahoma, like you guys said, is legitimately in this. And I agree with you. Hopefully, we can get him on campus junior July for an official, and maybe swing him because he would be a huge addition for OU in this class.
He would be. He'd be a game changer to have a 5-star corner like him, and then have a 5-star safety like Peyton Bowen in back-to-back classes. That's almost unheard of in recent memory for Oklahoma. The competition is getting better. The coaching is getting better. Everything's trending in the right direction. So we'll see. Hopefully, Oklahoma can have him come up for maybe an unofficial for the spring game. That would be good. Or at least get him up for the summer for a Champ U barbecue. Maybe even get him on campus for that June 16th through 18th official. So something definitely to keep an eye on. You guys have any final thoughts? That's all I've got. If not, Jose, go ahead.
Before we end the video, I think it'd be crazy for us to not mention that Sammy Brown was on campus. It seems like it's been known for a while that he was on campus. I think it was over the last 2 days. Posted some pictures about his visit. I'm trying to find the Hayes post that just came out. I guess he spoke with Hayes a little bit, Hayes Fawcett, and said that Oklahoma has the best fan base in college football and has some of the best coaches as well. So, another more positive stuff for Oklahoma. We've mentioned it a few times now. It still seems like Oklahoma, it's fair to say we're probably not number one since Georgia's right down the road. He's camped at Clemson. He's been at Clemson multiple times. But Oklahoma is definitely in this recruitment for the best linebacker in the 2024 class.
For sure. And anytime you can get him on campus, it's good. I do think Clemson's going to be really hard for OU to beat. Just think about this. Oklahoma is at least in the running for Sammy Brown. Oklahoma's in the running, potentially leading for Williams-Nwaneri. Oklahoma's in the running, potentially leading for David Stone. And Kobe Black's up there. It's pretty impressive what Oklahoma is doing. I know it's a lot of ifs and towards the top and maybe not commitments right now. But as a whole, Oklahoma is sitting really in a great spot for this 24 class.
Just got to finish.
And last year they did. So I am not going to doubt them this year. I think they're going to do well. Brandon, do you have an individual challenge for the people?
Yeah, we were talking about Nashville being one of the best cities in the country, so let's just stick with Nashville for this one. I feel like most of our viewers have probably been to Nashville. It's not too far from Oklahoma. It's a fun place to visit. So what's the best spot in Nashville? And maybe down the road, a couple of years from now, we can have a rendezvous point in Nashville and watch a Oklahoma versus Commodore bout down there, and then have a good time. Meet up, drink some cold beers. So what's the best spot in Nashville?
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun, actually, to go out to Nashville for a weekend like that. So
The next individual challenge will be spell rendezvous.
I can't do it. All right. Well, you made it this far. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below, and we'll catch you guys next week.